Okay, good. All right.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for watching today. Kelly and I are going to be talking about setting boundaries and why it's so hard, and to give you some practical tools and tips. That's something that I've worked through a lot in my own personal journey and continue to. And this is something that comes up a lot clinically in our practice. We see a huge struggle with boundaries, and we wanted to give you a peek behind the curtain at some of our insights and some of our experience with this. So Kelly, would you like to share some of your insights and boundaries? Why are they important, and how do you see this coming up with clients?
Yeah, I mean, boundaries, it's like, it's a very complex subject. It's not quite as straightforward and simple that I think a lot of us, even in the helping profession, like to think it is. But one of the challenges I remember early on clinically that I would come across is, clients would come into the office with boundary issues, and clinically, I would probably go more into advice giving, like you should say no, set this boundary. And what I would find is that the clients would return and the boundaries wouldn't be set. And so I was forced to reorient kind of my clinical approach to boundary setting into really kind of slowing the process for clients and myself, in my own life boundary setting, but understanding, first of all, if we do have a challenge with boundaries in our life, we need to stop and first understand why that is. Without understanding our why, it makes it almost impossible to just jump into boundary setting. And so I would encourage everyone who's listening to kind of first, if you do find, that boundary setting and people pleasing is a concern that you have and a challenge in life, ask yourself why that is. And this is where, Alison, clinically, we probably drive people crazy, but we always go back, because a lot of times this has begun early on in life, on an unconscious level. But I find clients kind of fall into 4 camps, and I'll be interested to know if you would agree with it. But clients tend to have problems with boundaries for 4 different reasons. It's not perfect and all-encompassing, but these camps tend to come up the most. The first is the fear of conflict. And oftentimes I find boundaries are hard when people have grown up in family environments in which conflict either turned volatile and really explosive, or resulted in kind of a manipulative loss of relationship when boundaries were set. If you had a family member with a personality disorder who would guilt and manipulate you if you had to withdraw or set a boundary. So that fear that boundaries will result in conflict is one camp that I see people falling into, which makes boundary setting feel awfully scary. The second camp I would say that I oftentimes see is this fear of disappointment or this fear of being rejected. If I set a boundary, that just having to handle and manage the fear of disappointing people. And oftentimes that disappointment, I see clients translating it back as that disappointment is indicative that I've made a wrong decision.
Yes.
Instead of kind of being able to absorb that disappointment or that maybe slight feeling of rejection relationally, we automatically assume that it must be because we made the wrong decision. And so we kind of dip into this self-doubt spiral. The third camp I see is kind of the faith experience, that misunderstood idea that to be a good Christian means to do everything for everyone. And oftentimes clinically, I find myself challenging that idea that truly the loving thing, oftentimes for the most loving thing we can do for our neighbor, for our family member, is to send a message that they are capable, to trust their ability, their innate ability to absorb disappointment, to absorb maybe feeling let down, and to resolve that in their own way, and to resource themselves differently. Like that's a loving thing that we can do for people in our lives to help their own developmental process.
That.
Um, and then the fourth one is just that worth and value. I see this a lot with clients, but sometimes we truly, when we come down to it, we don't believe we're worthy or valuable enough to be able to set and hold meaningful boundaries in our life. We've been given messages throughout life that essentially have dictated we don't matter. Like we don't matter as much as the rest. And so it makes it really, really hard, I think, for those clients to set those boundaries. I just said a lot. What are your thoughts? Agreed?
Oh yes, all of those. I think I resonate with those personally and in my personal journey, and I see that coming up clinically as well, is that fear of conflict and really just not feeling safe to say your wants or needs because it would result in such a rejection or a volatile conflict or loss of relationship and that manipulation thing. And then that further would make you feel like maybe I'm not worthy or I'm not valuable, my feelings and wants and needs, if it's going to cause an upset. And then it can cause you to question yourself of, well, I was wrong. Like I shouldn't have said anything because of this reaction. And then it sets you up for this lifelong pattern of like, well, then I will just defer to what other people want or need over my own self. And that's where the faith part, the theological part can get pretty confusing, I think, as I have to put other people before me, which is true. And I just think what Jesus said, to love other people as you love yourself. And I think he wants us to value what we need and what is authentic and what is right, and just that inherent value he's given us as his child. And if we're not honoring that and squelching that down, even when it feels, especially when it feels wrong, like I shouldn't, I'm not okay with this, but I'm going to do it anyways. That's not honoring or loving yourself.
No. And it's
No.
not in loving your neighbor. Like I just,
right. That's not.
We take a lot from, I think, from the people we love around us when we just take on all that responsibility. It's actually the least loving thing we can do, I think, in some cases,
Exactly.
to take their autonomy and their need to figure certain things out in life on their own.
Yes. And I love what you said earlier, that setting boundaries is really synonymous with people pleasing. It's really doing what other people want. I love that you said that earlier, and I caught that little phrase of when we don't set healthy boundaries, it's really just trying to please everyone around us instead of living out of our own personal value system. And we have a couple of great books we can list in the comments at the end, but there's two books. I haven't personally read this one, but I've seen a lot of quotes that I like. It's by Gary and Joy Lundberg, and the title is I Don't Have to Make Everything All Better. I like the title.
It's a good one. Yes.
Here's how they describe what boundaries are. Personal boundaries define you as an individual. They are statements of what you will or won't do, what you like and don't like, how far you will or won't go, how close someone can get to you, or how close you will get to another person. They are your value system in action. And this next little one, it's just one sentence. Having a strong, comfortable belief in your own value system means you have choices and must take responsibility for your thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Mm-hmm. And clinically aside, just personally, for so long, I kind of viewed boundaries as like a brick wall, or like it's a way to try to control people. If I did, which I didn't, but if I ever thought about setting a boundary, it was a way of controlling people or a situation. Mm-hmm. And I've come to find that it's really about honoring my value system, and it's the only thing I can control is myself. And so it's kind of changing the lenses of taking off the glasses that you can't see very well. I've used that metaphor before, and putting on different lenses to see boundaries as a way of, this is a way of me honoring what I know to be right and good for myself. And there's benefits to that. The benefit is that you get to have healthy relationship with other people. And the people that love you they will understand. They will want to do those things for you and respect you and like come alongside and be glad that you told them. And that's been my personal experience when I've been bold to say, hey, this is working or this isn't, and this is what I need, and to not feel bad about it. It's been so freeing individually, and I've seen so much growth in so many relationships come from it too.
Alison, that point that, yes, I think it exposes the healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships in our life. Like, I love that aspect of setting boundaries. Like, when we begin to do this, you really, it becomes pretty quickly to gauge, like, what healthy relationships exist in your life, and kind of that cheering you on in your, and holding your strength to set those boundaries and dictate what it is that feels right for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's just a couple of tips and hints of how we can move forward and start to think to apply once you figure out the why of why it's so hard or why is this so difficult. First of all, you can trust intrinsically. When something doesn't feel right. Maybe it's a uncle or a in-law that maybe hugs you too much or touches you in a way that makes you want to like get away. Trust that instinct. That's okay. Maybe it's a parent who calls you every day at work and you're busy and you always answer, but you don't want to. Maybe you can trust, not maybe, you can trust intrinsically that like, or internally that's not working for you. Or maybe it's a friend that asks for advice quite often, and you don't have the time or the energy. Think through some of the things where internally you get this, I'll do it, but I don't want to. And there are things in life we have to do that we don't want to do, but not everything. And you get to decide, what do you value? What's okay? What's not? And maybe it's telling the parent, hey, I would love to talk to you, but I just can't answer the phone when I'm at work anymore. Mm-hmm. It's telling the uncle, I know you love those hugs, but I'm just not comfortable with those. And I know for a lot of people, they say it's just not that easy. You have to go back to your why. Why is it not easy? Mm-hmm. Why can't you trust yourself and value what you need? And why is what other people want so important? So I think those are some things to think through when you're considering setting a boundary. I think clear communication in a kind, gentle way. We're not saying blaze the trail and tell them, I never want to see you again, or whatever it is. It's for the benefit of you and the relationship. And healthy boundaries don't cut off relationship. It actually opens them up to be more healthy, and especially for the people that want to be a part of your life and know you and love you. So we could spend quite a bit of time on this. The other book I want to share with you guys is Boundaries by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Those are two great books that are really important that we'll put in the comments for you guys to look at.
Yes. So I would say good luck. I think during this time where stress is high and there's a lot going on and there's a lot of need around us, don't be afraid to really explore boundary setting in your own life, and to really press in. If it is something that comes up, to press into understanding more of what that's about, and then practicing the skills, because I think when we get these skills down, life becomes a lot more manageable and stress becomes a lot more easier to handle.
Frees us up.
All right. Till next time.
Have a good day, you guys.